I had a family member reach out to me and ask if I wanted some free lawnmowers. I stared right into their eyes and said, "Have you seen any of my videos? Of course I'll take your free mowers." Now I wish I'd known what mowers they were going to give me, otherwise I wouldn't have waited for a few days. The reason is, after working on this particular one, this might be one of my favorite mowers of all time, and I'm going to tell you why. What's up everyone, and thank you for stopping by. Today's project is this Toro lawnmower, and the problem is that I picked it up from a family member and they didn't know anything about it. Now they said it could run or it might need some repairs, but they just weren't sure. Now when I first saw it, it was covered in dirt and grass clippings, so it didn't look anything like this, but after a quick cleaning I then realized the excellent condition it was in. Now, I'm going to try and repair this mower, however, it may not be the exact repair you need to make to yours. We'll explore other options later in the video. Now, we're only going to mention what these other options could be. We don't have enough time to look into them, but if you need more information on these other options, you're welcome to ask as many questions as you need to. Now, this is the first time I've had a chance to work on a super recycler, but I never knew how it was any different from the regular recycler, and I was very surprised by all the differences. The first thing I wanted to take a look at was the transmission and see where it stands when compared to the regular transmission and the commercial one of the same period. So this transmission is nowhere close to the commercial one, but it's not the same as the regular transmission either, and that's because this one has one more gear on its own shaft than the regular transmission. Now that extra gear reduces the wear on the pinion and spur gear as well as the axle bushings, which is a huge problem for the regular transmission. In my opinion, this alone is worth the extra money. Now, if a better transmission isn't enough of a reason to choose the Super over the regular, how about a mowing deck that won't rust away on you? Now, this is not the commercial version, but it's closely related to it. There are a couple of revisions that make it less likely to crack in a few weak spots. It's almost as if they wanted you to keep this mower for a very long time. Now, after dealing with a Husqvarna mower with a handlebar issue, it's really nice to see one made from durable materials. Now, having worked with so many mowers over the years, this has been one of my go-to areas when trying to figure out the quality of a mower and what kind of lifespan the engineers were aiming for. Now this is the part of the mower where they had to cut some costs, but it's not all that bad. They're still using their personal pace system for the self-propel, and even though I really like it, I would have liked to have seen something a bit different here to differentiate it from the regular recycler. It does have one small weak point which I've addressed in other videos, otherwise it's a very good system. Now before I try and start this mower, I'm going to check the air filter, the oil level, and the gas in the tank just to make sure we don't have any issues. And this is not a good way to start off. It looks as though the air filter has never been changed, and if it was done a long time ago. There's also a small amount of dirt getting past the air filter, so that means we'll need to replace it. But for now, I'm going to show you how much dirt was actually in the pleats of this filter. Now after tapping it on this rock several times, there's still quite a lot in the pleats, but it's a whole lot better. If I can get most of this dirt out of it, I do plan on reusing this filter. Now if you do plan on using compressed air to remove the dirt, make sure you turn the pressure down under 40 psi, otherwise you could damage it. Now when checking the oil level, make sure you wipe the old oil off the dipstick first and then reinstall it into the fill tube, otherwise you run the risk of damaging the engine. So it looks like there's too much oil in the engine, and it's okay to be a little over the full mark, but this is just too much. When I see it at this level on the dipstick, it usually means someone's put a whole quart, which is 32 ounces, into the engine. Now this engine only needs around 18 to 20 ounces of oil. So I finally got all the dirt out of the pleats so we can do a test start. Now don't worry, I do have a replacement filter for this engine, but I want to confirm that this engine still works before I replace it. As for maintenance, I would check the air filter at least once a year, and if it's dirty, I just give it a good shake. However, if you find the filter covered in dirt every time you check, I'd consider buying a new air filter. Now even though I don't see any gasoline inside the tank, I do see that it's wet, which means there's still some in it. If it was bone dry, I would put more in it, but for right now, I'm going to try and start it. I've gotten some slack for overpriming carbs in the past, so I'm going to do exactly what the sticker says, which is to only press it 3 times. I'm a little surprised that it started and ran just fine, which I was not expecting. Now, even though the previous owner overfilled the engine with oil and never inspected the air filter, the engine seems to have survived just fine. Or maybe not. I guess I'll have to shift gears on this repair and instead try to find out how this engine is holding up after all this time. Now, the first thing I want to do is drain all 32 ounces of oil out of the engine and then put the correct amount back in. Now, the stuff that came out of the engine was very dark, which is not a good sign, but since we ran the engine for a few minutes and the oil is hot, we were able to get most of it out of the engine in preparation for the new oil. While the mower is on its side, I'm going to take this opportunity to remove the wheel bolts for a quick application of lithium grease. This should make the mower easier to push around the yard, especially when the engine isn't on. Before I roll the mower back on its wheels, I'm also going to inspect the underside of the mowing deck. Now, the blade looks to be in great shape and I don't see any gouges in it. We can also see the plastic blocks that helped redirect grass clippings to improve the mower's mulching ability, which is yet another difference between this mower and the regular one. When filling the oil, slow down and take your time and don't put too much in it. I would also recommend checking the oil level as you fill. Now, most people are just in a hurry to do this part, and I think that's the reason why most people put too much oil in the engine. In real time, I think this took me almost 2 minutes to fill the oil. If you hadn't figured it out, I'm going to use my compression tester to get a reading of what kind of pressure the engine can make. Now, this will let us know how well the rings are sealing against the cylinder wall. For the first attempt, I'm going to use the pull cord, and the reason is most people will do it this way. So the reading we're getting is 55 psi, which makes it look like this engine is severely worn out. But this reading is not accurate because this engine has a compression release. Now, I don't know what a healthy reading should be, but the real reading should be a little bit higher than this. I did have someone ask me if it would be easier to spin the engine over by turning the nut on the blade instead of the flywheel, and there are two huge problems with that idea. The first is, of course, it's a safety hazard to be that close to the business end of a mower while it's spinning, and the other issue is that you'd have to turn the engine in the direction that could possibly loosen the bolt for the blade. Either way, don't do it, but it does mean you'll have to go through all this trouble to do it the safer way. After several minutes, we're finally at the nut for the flywheel, but before I put my drill on it, I'm going to vacuum up all this dirt and grass clippings. That way it won't go flying around everywhere when I use my drill. Now, since I won't be near the brake handle during the test because I'll be holding the drill, I need to close the handle so the flywheel brake is not engaged. Also, make sure you stand clear of the mowing deck, otherwise you could lose a toe. The new reading is a lot better at 120 psi, but the news is not good. A great reading would have been very close to 150 psi. So what this is telling me is that this engine did not go unscathed because of the poor maintenance, and it did suffer some extra wear. Now, the reading isn't terrible, it still has plenty of life left in it, but I was hoping for a better result. Now, because of the amount of carbon on the spark plug, it tells me that it's burning oil, and with the low compression reading, I think this might be a prime candidate for some engine restore. The low reading could be due to worn rings or maybe some scratches on the cylinder wall, so this should help out. I hate to say it, but out of the several times I've used this product, I've never had it work for me, so I'm hoping it works this time. After pouring the correct amount into the engine, I'll then add more gasoline to the tank so I can use it for an extended period of time. I'll then let it cool down and then do another compression test, and hopefully the numbers will improve. So as you can see, the entire mower is covered in dirt, even though the chute door is completely closed. If I use this mower again, I might put the bag on so this doesn't happen again, but the grass is pretty much dead, so I'm mostly mowing dirt anyway. Now I used the mower for about 20 minutes and it worked great aside from the dusting that I got, and before I do my compression test, I'm going to take a moment to hose down the mower to get rid of the dust. Not that it matters to the test, but I do intend on making another film right after this one. Now, I'm not going to torture you by taking everything off again, so instead we're going to move right to the test. Now, the previous reading was 120 psi, so I'm hoping for anything higher than that. Unfortunately, the reading is still 120 psi. Now, it doesn't mean that engine restore doesn't work, it just means that the wear on this engine is a bit more than this additive can deal with. In other cases where it didn't work and I took the engine apart, I would typically find severe gouging on the cylinder wall, which is something this product is not designed to deal with. So another option as to why the compression is low on this engine is that the head gasket could be broken and leaking air out of the combustion chamber. A reason for a broken head gasket could be some of the head bolts have backed out of the block. The fix would be to remove the head and replace the gasket. Now, despite this worn engine, I still really admire this Super Recycler, and the reason is, for the price, you basically get an affordable version of a commercial mower, and if you don't really care to get a mower that's built to last a long time, then you should at least appreciate the effort they made trying to make a machine that, if taken care of, could be the last mower you'll ever need. So my question is, would you pay more for all these extra features, like an aluminum deck, more robust wheels with metal drive gears, grease fittings, mulching aids, and a stronger transmission, or am I letting the sales brochure get to me? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions, and I hope to see you in the next video.